What has been the most embarrassing moment where you have been exposed as a creep? I got a little buzzed and was chatting this girl up on Facebook. We started talking tacos, obviously, so I decided to hop on my bicycle and pedal my way to the Taco Bell. I loaded my jacket pockets up with tacos, biked to her apartment, called her, and said, "Hey, I'm outside your place." She was like, "Liar, you don't know where I live." I responded, wait, are you sure? Then she peeked out the curtains to see me on the sidewalk with a jacket full of tacos. All right, so her liar quickly turned into, "Wait, is this dude serious?" I guess you gotta admire the guy's dedication to taco fueled romance. And if you're asking me, I'm pretty sure it was a hot sauce, just not the mild one. Story 2. My cousin is possibly one of the creepiest, most socially inept guys that I know. He is one of two people I know who is pretty much an instant clock block to be hanging around. At the time, he was working up in Alaska, 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. One of his weeks off, he decides to come visit me to check out the college we'd both be attending in the fall. He tells me right away that he needs to get to do it and to invite over any girl that I know. To be honest, I don't really like him, but he's family, right? So I start making phone calls, end up getting 3 or 4 girls to come and hang with us. He makes a cooler of this crap he calls boomerang, which is like beer, vodka, and limeade. He proceeds to get royally intoxicated and tries to hit on one of these girls. He starts to tell her about how when he was a kid, he'd have trouble sleeping, his mom would rub his hands a certain way, and it would put him out. I'm thinking to myself, well, this isn't exactly how I would have approached it, when he proceeds to ask the girl if she will massage his hands the same way his mom did. And that kind of creeped her out, so she stopped showing interest in him. Being a college party, quite a few people crashed at my place that night. Aforementioned girl passed out on one of our downstairs couches, while my cousin passed out on the other one. The thing is, he's laying in this incredibly awkward position so he could fall asleep while looking at her and massaging his own hands. Girl wakes up in the morning to see my passed out cousin staring her down, never coming back to a party at my house. Story 3. I had a similar situation in high school. She was 1 year ahead of me. Jennifer. "Hey, what are you staring at?" Me. Well, to be honest, your, melons. Jennifer. "What? Are they disturbingly asymmetrical or something?" Me. "No, they're disturbingly huge, to be honest." Jennifer. "Oh, I guess it's okay then, I suppose." I get mind blown at that point as I expected a slap in the face. Me. I have to ask, those can't be real, can they? That triggered a conversation that set us up as friends for a long time and resulted in her essentially talking me into testing them to verify authenticity. I never went anywhere because she made it clear that she had a boyfriend and I never went for it as I respected that. Coolest gal ever. She passed away in a car crash about 5 years ago. I hadn't heard from her in years when I found out, but it still stung. Yes, I was a creep, but she loved it. Story 4. I was stumbling through a chat roulette with some buddies while wearing costumes or some type of random clothing, as many do while on chat roulette, when we came across a few cute girls. They didn't next us right away, and we were able to strike up a conversation and exchange names and general locations. Well, being the proficient Facebook creeper that I am, I quickly found their profiles and was swapping between said profile and the video chat. I was wearing a pair of large sunglasses, and the girl commented on them, saying, "You look creepy with those glasses on." Being a little animated, I moved my face and glasses right next to the webcam and slyly asked with a big grin, "What's so creepy about them?" She said, "I can see my Facebook profile in their reflection." And I bet behind those glasses, his eyes went wide like, "Woo, I just got caught." Story 5. I was misunderstood. I swear. Last year, I was visiting a female friend of mine and a roommate over at a different college for a few days. Now, over the past few months, I've gone shoe shopping along with a few different girls. I started to get pretty good at picking out women's shoes, matching individual styles, guessing sizes, etc. Well, anyway, one morning we were all sitting around in their apartment, and I noticed my one friend had a pretty nice pair of flats on. She's got to be a size 36, I thought to myself, but I didn't say anything because I thought that would be a weird, creepy thing to, just blurt out. These people just didn't know how good I was at shopping for girl shoes. So I did the smart thing and waited for the girl to take her shoes off so I could sneak over and check them out. While I was left alone in my friend's room, that's where I was staying, I picked up one of her shoes and took a look. 36, I knew it. I thought just as I saw the door swing open, my friend's roommate was standing there staring at me with a shocked look, and I froze with the shoe in my hand. I suddenly realized that I looked like I was smelling the shoe, and I dropped it fast, but the roommate had already shut the door. Story 6. There was this tutor I had in university who I had a huge crush on. I was walking through the hall talking to my friends about her, and I think I said something along the lines of her. I actually used her name. Bum looks so amazing. It's a shame when she wears a loose dress. She then struts past me wearing these tight pants and says, I'm assuming these are more appropriate then. My friends are giggling to themselves and I just froze up. I didn't know how to respond. I had to endure another 2 tutorials with her. She did give me a homemade cinnamon roll though when I last visited her. I guess flattery can get you some things. Story 7. That would probably be during my junior year in high school. I went to a boarding school and somehow we'd managed to get our own Facebook network. This was back when Facebook was primarily for college students only, so everyone was posting pictures like crazy. Over my time browsing, being the little weirdo I was, I had saved probably around 100 pictures of various girls from my small school wearing bikinis, tight sweaters, or even just smiling and other stuff like that, into a folder on my desktop named Fun Stuff. I never really let anyone use my computer back then, so I never thought it would be a problem. But one day my roommate's girlfriend was over and she needed to print an essay, so I nervously said, oh yeah, sure. Not wanting to be weird and tell her, no, you can't, right after I just printed something. And there was no way I could make up an excuse as to why my printer wasn't working. So she plugged in her thumb drive and was printing off her paper, and I figured everything would be fine. I turned my back for about 10 seconds and I heard her say, ooh, fun stuff, huh? What's this? Corn? I turned around to her scrolling through all of the pictures of our female classmates I'd saved in a folder, some of which included her. She sat there, silently like that, scrolling through pictures for about 30 seconds, and then turned around and saw me blushing like crazy and trying to come up with some kind of excuse and just said, don't worry, I won't tell, and winked at me before grabbing her paper and skipping off on her way. I deleted them after that. I am so damn lucky that she was so cool. Some of the girls at my high school would have flipped if they found out that collection of pictures existed, despite the fact that they were all available for anyone on Facebook. Moral of the story? There is no moral of the story. The end. Story 8. Freshman year of college, public speaking class. The professor decides to videotape everyone's speech so we could all see how we looked when speaking, except that the professor decided to let people move their desks to form a circle with the person talking in the middle. Because of how the professor set up the tripod, I was directly in the camcorder's line of sight. And of course, the camcorder caught me staring at the bum of every girl who was speaking in front of me, complete with one raised eyebrow and a slight grin while staring. Plus, I was caught trying to stifle some major laughter when a fat guy went up there talking about natural gas. Story 9. I used to go to a Chinese restaurant located in the middle of a food court every day on the way to and from work. A beautiful girl worked there, and I would always glance to see if she was working or not before going over to order. One day, I was peering around the corner. I couldn't see her, so I turned around to leave, and she was standing right behind me, looking at me like I was a serial criminal. I locked up then, blurted out that she was cute and asked for her phone number. She denied it and walked away. I thought I ruined it. A week later, she tracked me down on Google+. She memorized my name from my debit card and was really shy, I guess. Now we're dating. I don't know who's creepier, but it was a relief to know that I wasn't alone. Well, 2 birds of the same feather definitely belong together. Story 10. Last year I was at the park and playground babysitting. I was a large 21-year-old male with an unkempt beard sitting alone at the park watching a group of girls playing. There were 2 benches side by side with me at the edge of one of them. Some lady with kids shows up and sits at the opposite end from me. What she never sees is the Bluetooth in my ear on the far side. So she's there for about half an hour now and I'm still just watching the girl I'm supposed to be watching when I get a call. I answer and it's my friend talking about the party we were at last night. He says, "Damn dude, did you see how hot girl number 1 looked last night? And all her friends were so sexy." And that's when I reply, "I know, the one in the Powerpuff Girls shirt was the hottest for sure." Mom gets up, grabs her kids and leaves, like super fast. I didn't even realize what she thought till a couple of seconds too late to even try and explain anything at all. Story 11. My brother was in high school and used to film the football practices and games, edit them down, and sell the highlight tapes to people at school. However, since he was in high school, he also used to make tapes of the cheerleaders practicing or just lounging around for, research purposes later. Didn't sell those, though. Cut to him riding home with the players and cheerleaders from a game and reviewing the tape. The guys are gathered around to see the game tape. At the end of the tape, it runs out and immediately cuts to a cheerleader sitting on a bleacher before zooming in on her garments. The player sitting across from my brother, "That's my freaking girlfriend, dude." He told me it was an awkward 2 hours home. Story 12. I was in a lecture class creeping on a super hot girl who randomly friended me a couple of weeks earlier on Facebook. My friend was sitting next to me and asked me who it was, and I blindly said, "That witch is my side piece." Little did I know my side piece was sitting directly behind me, watching throughout the whole ordeal, and without saying a word, let out a fake gag and moved several seats down. She unfriended me a couple of hours later, and I haven't seen her in class again. I was utterly embarrassed, and my friend could not stop laughing. Story 13. Fooled around with my friend's girlfriend's friend at their house. Next day, I get a call from my friend asking if I stole this girl's garments. She managed to lose her garments sometime, thought I stole it, and told my friends that I took it. I was sitting at work feeling guilty about the whole ordeal and offended that my friends and this girl now think I am some sort of creep. It sucked because I definitely liked the girl, but this was probably going to prevent us from hanging out again. Decided to call the girl and tell her I didn't take her garments and that she probably lost them in the commotion. She didn't believe me. Later in the week, I got a call from her saying her friend found the missing garments on the couch and she wanted to hang out again. Story 14. Recently, I was a senior in college, chilling on my computer, which is on a corner desk. So I was facing the corner, just chilling, playing games on Newgrounds, Facebooking, etc. My bedroom door was usually in my peripheral vision, but I was focused on this random game, so I couldn't see it at all. Eventually, I went over to Facebook and found this girl had posted some photos from the annual undie run. I commenced creeping on the album. A good 5 to 7 minutes into the creeping, I get a text from my girlfriend. Turn around. Yes, my girlfriend had come over, snuck into my room while I was gaming, and watched me creeping on a random Facebook girl's scandalous photos for more than 5 minutes. That's worse, I think, than your mom walking in on you while you're doing stuff to yourself. Story 15. In college, I had a friend who was that odd combination of reserved/raunchy. She had issues. She liked to tease me and play dirty, practical jokes. Some were funny, some were annoying. One day, I thought I'd get her back. She was sitting peacefully in the lounge outside of a classroom that happened to be in my dorm, long story, and didn't see me walk by. I ran up to my room and filled a rubber with water, foolishly fashioning what I thought would be a simple water balloon. Wound up throwing it in her face and hearing it thwonk off her head and roll into the middle of the room, just as the classroom doors opened and pretty much everyone I knew walked by, watching her scream. I apologized profusely as the 2 or 3 girls consoling her were telling me I had done enough and to just walk away. Yow. She remains one of my best friends all these years later. Story 16. Was a pizza delivery guy in college, junior year, decided I'd try a fake English accent at a few stops and see if anyone could call me out on it. So I get a delivery at this apartment complex and this hot blonde answers the door. I go through my typical delivery speech but in an English accent. She immediately perks up and starts asking where I'm from. I make something completely up, Devonshire. What the heck? That she loves my beautiful accent. Sometimes I can do them pretty well, I guess. And I can tell I'm actually attracting this girl that would otherwise look right past me. After some flirty small talk, I get around to asking her out and she actually accepts and sounds like she's really excited about it. This is pure gold. So I start calculating in my head how long I could possibly pull off a fake English accent. And then I hear this girl around the corner. Hal, is that you? How's it going? And of course, it was this girl who knew me pretty well from a lab we had together at school. And knew god dang well I did not have an English accent. I quickly got my things together as if I was all of a sudden in a big rush and tried my best to answer their perplexed questions in muted, somewhat unrecognizable speech. I get to my car and freeze in embarrassment. I had to come clean when I saw the girl who knew me in the lab the next day. Story 17. A friend of mine posts his original songs on YouTube. They are absolutely amazing, and I listen to them all on repeat because damn, can that boy sing. It's piano pop that sort of makes me think if Norah Jones's piano talent had a baby with John Mayer's voice and lyrics. He's also amazingly beautiful and probably the nicest person I know, so I posted the link to r/gamers, figuring they would appreciate it. Then I clicked back onto the video and right underneath it said that gamers something something was talking about this video. I flipped and deleted my account and the thread hoping it would disappear, but it didn't. And he still saw my post where I basically just gushed over how pretty and nice and talented he is. He said thank you, but geez, I don't think I've ever been that embarrassed. Hold up, I wish someone would find the link to that YouTube video because that sounds like a pretty sweet combination. Norah Jones's piano talent with a bit of John Mayer? Gotta be good stuff. Story 18. In high school, a friend and I went to another friend's place after a party a bit intoxicated. We were listening to music and we were on the computer doing random things. I signed on to MSN Messenger for a bit and then relaxed on the bed. After a while, I hear my intoxicated friend sniggering on the computer, so I get up and see that he's on my MSN account talking to the girl I had a huge crush on. and she very likely was aware of it. He was in the process of typing a long sentence but hadn't pressed enter yet. I yelled, "What the heck are you doing?" And he panicked and pressed enter, then panicked more and closed the window so I couldn't read what he had written. The beginning was, "I want to sleep with you so bad." I spent all night trying to figure out what exactly he had written to her. He wouldn't tell me and kept saying, "I don't remember." At the end of the night, I found out the next part, "I want to sleep with you so bad I might hurt you." Yikes. The next day, he admitted another part of the message, which was just as bad, but I can't remember it. The message was still longer than that, but he never revealed what it was. The next day, I apologized to her on MSN, didn't dare speak to her after that night. I told her what happened. She told me she wasn't interested. Story 19. In 9th or 10th grade, I decided to take a fake Johnson to school to show off to my buddies. My dad had gotten it as a gag gift for his 50th birthday from people at his work. It had a little strap that you could put around your ankle so that when you pulled up your pants, it looked like you were really big. Well, anyway, I told the wrong person that I had it at some point. During class, I decided I needed to go to the bathroom and take a leak. I left my hat and my bag in the classroom. On my way back, as I rounded the corner, I could see that the teacher was standing with the thing wrapped up in my hat in front of the class. The kid that I mentioned my prize to took it out when I left the room and was throwing it around. Some girl, actually trying to be nice to me, told everyone to shut up because it's no one's business if I want to have a toy in my bag. LOL. Good times. Story 20. Throwaway account. I've never really talked to anyone about this, ever. So when I was in middle school, around 12 years old, there was a lot of cute, developing girls in my small Catholic school class. I was a generously overweight nerd who always felt a little behind the curve when it came to maturity. Anyway, I used to subtly walk by these girls and be like budge with the back of my hand over my elbow and shoulder, briskly walking past them and brushing against them like it was an accident. I was stupid enough to think they didn't notice until one of them told one of the guys at a party where I was doing it about it, and he made it super obvious that he and they knew by doing the same things to me. I never did it again, and it's one of my worst and most shameful creeper memories. Story 21. A few months ago, I was chatting with some girl who was way too amazing to be legit. I figured it was a particularly evil ex of mine trying to toy with me. So I took to the interwebs while chatting with her, digging up every little bit of info I could. Reverse Google image searches from display pictures led to links to assorted profiles. Within about 15 minutes, I had her Facebook, address, phone number, pretty much everything I needed to verify she was, in fact, a real person. I mentioned something to the effect of, "Oh, looks like you're a real person after all." She pressed for details, so I told her what I did. After writing it out, I realized I just nerd creeped her. She was equal parts creeped out and impressed, and now she's my girlfriend of 2 months. Story 22. My sister and I spent the weekend with her best friend's family and some other friends at a beach house. I hadn't seen my sister's best friend in several years, and she'd grown up hot. On the drive home, my sister's cell phone was in her pocket, and it accidentally dialed her best friend while I was talking about how hot she'd become. I said I'd sleep with her, but I probably wouldn't date her, among other things. Eventually, my sister's best friend hung up and called to tell us she'd heard everything. I said I stand by what I said, and within a month we were fooling around regularly. She's still the best I've ever had. Well, that one had a happy ending, when we least expected it. And if you're enjoying the videos so far, wait until you hear the end of it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button too for more videos just like this. Story 23. So back during the summer between my freshman and sophomore years of undergrad, I was making a road trip out from Chicago to Ohio to visit some of my new college buddies to hang out for a weekend. A bit of a backstory. I'm one of the more considerate drivers out there. I'll always let you in, I always signal, stay out of the left lane unless passing, the works. Now, I'm also a bit of a car nut, so I'm typically well aware of the makes and models of different cars on the road. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but something I noticed back in the years from, say, 1997 through 2004, practically every terrible driver I saw tended to be behind the wheel of a Pontiac. I don't know why this is the case, maybe because they were driving excitement. I'm not raging on Pontiac, the car, either. I've rented them more than a few times and had a pleasant enough experience. So it's mainly just the driver, and each time I had the chance to catch a glimpse of these drivers, it was usually a sight to behold. Anyway, I'd just gotten one of those newfangled camera phones, stay with me here, and I decided as a hobby to keep a photographic record of every insane Pontiac driver I saw and assemble it into a collage. You know, just for the craps and or giggles. Anyway, I was driving next to a Grand Am on a rural Ohio highway during about 70 when I saw the tinted rear window roll down and a kid started to do something inside. You can see where this is headed. Without really thinking it through, I pull alongside the Pontiac and take a picture, thinking that this is one of the most insane things I've ever seen, and in a Pontiac, no less. So the adult riding in the passenger seat witnesses my picture taking, and I see her freaking out, presumably thinking that the next step in this ritual is something likely involving lotion, hands, and a garden hose. I saw her copy down my license plate and make a phone call. Nothing ever came of it though, and to this day, the collage remains incomplete. Story 24. I was having a barbecue at my place one summer's day. I'd gotten a new puppy to go with my new place that the party was for. I had a girlfriend at the time, and her friends and family showed up for said barbecue. I was in my room playing with the puppy when I got slightly distracted for a minute and noticed the puppy had wandered off into the other room. Since I was going outside to show the guests the new dog, I had to go fetch him. He ended up going underneath the bed in the guest room to chase the cat. As I looked underneath, I noticed he was all the way in the back corner cuddling up with Mr. Fluffball from hell, so I had to crawl under the bed and retrieve him. After a minute of shuffling, I finally grabbed him and I was about to come out when my girlfriend's sister walked in. Apparently, she decided to change into her flag-themed bikini. I probably could have looked away, but come on, guys always think about these things, and I was still nervous as hell, so she's ruffling through her bag on the floor when suddenly the baby golden retriever decides he wants to be loud. She looked over, didn't really look startled or anything, and simply said, "Aw, did you want to see me like this?" I let out a sigh of relief and said, "Thank God you're not angry." Then she screamed. Yeah, she didn't know I was there too. Yikes, talk about a rough introduction. Ha! The puppy was just trying to break the ice, awkwardly. Story 25. There was this guy I had a huge crush on. Imagine the most gorgeous guy you've ever seen. Now imagine someone 50 times hotter. That's how stunning this guy was. Anyways, naturally, I was far too shy to talk to him, so being the idiot that I was, I decided to put notes on his locker. Oh, the joys of high school, right? These notes were really creepy. I left no indication of who I was, though, so I felt I'd be alright to let my inner creep just flow. He somehow found it was me. I went home and cried for a really long time. Story 26. A few years back, I was at a party at my neighbor's house. It had been going for a few hours, so as you would expect, everyone was intoxicated and falling all over the place. Suddenly, I noticed an unattended cell phone ringing on the table I was standing next to. I looked around, but no one seemed to acknowledge the ring. In my intoxicated, muddled brain, I thought, this is my chance to be a hero. So I picked up the phone just as it stopped ringing. Bugger, but I figured while I was there, I would see if there was a wallpaper image or something obvious that would identify the owner. At least I could let them know, but there was no need. 5 seconds later, one of the neighbors' best friends comes stumbling out of the bathroom to see me intently scrolling through her phone. She goes crazy. She starts yelling and screaming that I was a creep and I was a stalker, etc. I try to explain, but what sounded like a good idea in my mind sounded a lot worse explained through slurs and burps. My neighbor tried to defuse the situation by explaining I wasn't a creep and I was probably just trying to help out, but her friend didn't want a bar of it. There was a happy end to the night, however. After the embarrassment of the happenings inside, I went and hid out in the backyard with the smokers. There, I got talking to another girl who was very friendly and decided to ignore the creep jeers coming from inside. In 3 months, we're getting married. Story 27. This one time I was chatting up with a girl in the library that I sort of liked. For whatever reason, just to start a conversation with her that didn't involve school, I make up a random story about a gay guy getting a little too handsy with me on the SkyTrain. She seemed slightly shocked, so instead of just stopping there, I went into further detail about it without stopping. Finally, when it seemed as if she had had enough, I asked her if a girl had ever gotten a little too touchy with her on public transit. She didn't say anything, and I walked away slowly, only to do a full loop back to the same location where she was still photocopying because I had left my backpack there. Ugh. Story 28. I was sitting in one of my smaller university classes where the teacher decided we should all have name tags that you prop up in front of you to learn our names. This guy who was sitting up one row and to the right of me was idly playing with his name tag during the lecture, and I saw his name. He was very attractive, so I wrote down his name in my notes. I immediately took out my cell phone and looked him up on Facebook. My male friend who was sitting beside me looked over and noticed I was creeping on this guy's page while he was sitting right in front of me. Turns out my friend knew him from baseball and said, "Hey, how do you know blank's name?" The guy turned around and gave me a weird look, had explained to my friend that I did not in fact know him and that I was just a creep. Story 29. This was probably 5th grade. I was riding home on the bus in the middle seat with my friend at the window and another kid to my right. I reached down and started playing with my newfound leg hair, twisting it for a couple of minutes while daydreaming. I clearly remember thinking how weird it was that I couldn't feel myself twisting the hair. I looked down and it still took me a few long seconds of watching my fingers twist hair on a leg that clearly was not attached to me. I instantly looked up and straight ahead, but in my peripheral vision, I could see the mortified look on the kid's face next to me. No words were shared, only terror. It was traumatic and strange enough that I bet that kid still remembers it to this day. Story 30. I've only attended private schools, none of which offered daily transportation for students. Consequently, I utilized the public transit system to make it to and from school every day, as did many fellow classmates, until I was able to drive as a teenager. I've never been the friendliest person around, and in junior high, I hadn't quite learned the value of fake it to make it in terms of networking and developing relationships. In other words, I was a loner. My pastime of choice every day as I sat alone on the typically crowded bus was to write. Specifically, I would select one or more strangers on the bus and write an extremely brief micro-slasher novella with him, her, them as the unsuspecting victim. I use the same spiral notebook for all my work, and I like making the occasional crossover reference from story to story. The anti-hero Terminator was based on the sharp, well-dressed villain from my favorite horror film at the time, Blood and Black Lace. Like the character from the film, I challenged myself each day to think of new and creative ways of wreaking havoc. It was a fantastic, imaginative outlet for me at the time. On one particular day, I'd finished a story in no more than 10 minutes, with the memorably attractive red-headed woman sitting one row behind me as a victim. After shuffling through several entries, including my latest, and organizing them into a new, larger manila folder I had recently purchased, I moved on to a new victim. Not even 2 minutes later, an exciting new idea came to mind, and I decided to review my previous story. To my confusion, however, my new folder was nowhere to be found, nor were any of its contents. Confusion quickly turned into mounting panic as I frantically rifled through my textbooks and backpack despite knowing for certain it wouldn't be there. Too horrified to look around the bus and too awkward to speak to anyone, I hurriedly got off at the next step. I was nowhere near my destination, and it took an extra hour to get home that day. I never rode that route from school ever again, in fear I'd be arrested. Story 31. I used to have these neighbors I would watch through my kitchen window while I was doing dishes sometimes. They were all cute and often shirtless, and they didn't have blinds in my defense. The first night I actually met them, I was at a bar with my roommate and we got to talking to them. Suddenly, my roommate just blurts out, "Which one of you plays Halo?" Because sometimes we watch you play Halo through our windows. So from then on, they were fully aware that we could see pretty much anything going on in their apartment, and I think they were creeped out. But then a few months later, I ended up having intimacy with one of them, so everything went better than expected. All right, so the key to intimacy is a shared hobby and a lack of window coverings, apparently. Noted. Story 32. 1 year into college, I came home for winter break and went to a high school arts festival at my old high school. A couple of my old friends were there. We started talking about a few of the girls in the lower grades that had matured since we graduated. Started talking specifically about this one girl that was now in 10th grade. My friend's sister is in the same grade, and so he was giving updates that he had learned about her, that she was getting with a ton of dudes, and how we all agreed she was pretty hot and looked older than she was, and so on. Turn around, there she is, sitting with her father, looking like her eyes were going to explode, and her father looked like he was about to crap really hard. I just said, "Oh, crap," and actually ran away. My friends played it cool and sat there as if they hadn't heard, but they definitely had. I felt really bad about it and really creepy. I see her every once in a while now and can still never look her in the face or even say hello. Story 33. This was in 7th grade. I had a crush on a boy who basically looked like a 7th grade Patrick Swayze. He was very nice to me and we hung out sometimes to play on the library computers. His name was Michael. Can't remember his last name, but let's just say it's Smith. I was hanging out with some other 7th grade kids. It was outside of school hours, but I don't know what for. I didn't hang out normally, so it must have been some school-related thing, parent-teacher conferences maybe. Anyways, they started teasing me because I didn't have a boyfriend. I definitely said, "Yes, I do." "Oh yeah? Who?" "You don't know him." "What's his name?" "Michael." "What's his last name?" I couldn't think of a fake name fast enough, so I blurted out, "Michael Smith." "Ha ha ha, you're a liar. You're not dating him." "A different Michael Smith." "Ha ha ha ha," etc. Sigh, I did have self-esteem issues at that age. I don't know if they ever went and told Michael what I had said, but I hope not. And if they did, he never said anything about it. Story 34. I was walking across town square one night just minding my own business when I saw through a window a tall guy wearing leather harming a chicken. Curious, I sneaked up through some of the bushes to the window and peeked in, hoping he wouldn't notice me. And I saw 3 or 4 chickens in this guy's living room and feathers scattered everywhere. The guy in leather glanced over at the window, and when he sees me, just smiles and stares at me for a moment. I jump a little and fell backwards over the bushes and started getting back to my feet, and the heck out of there, feeling a little embarrassed for sneaking up to a guy's window, plus a little freaked out. The guy came out while I was getting up and accosted me before I could get away. I looked at him and my nervous lisp began to act up. I tried to apologize or say sorry, but it came out as then I exploded. Story 35. Job hunting, late 1990s. In preparation, I purchased a new modem, fax software, and printer. To test the functionality, I asked a friend to send me a fax. I received it, okay, and sent it to the printer to reveal that my friend was being a wise guy and faxed a girl giving this guy a whistle. Very funny, I said at his juvenile prank. Knowing that at least it all technologically functioned, I scanned my resume in and sent it to every recruiter in town, about 3 dozen. Yeah, you see it coming. By mistake, I sent the picture instead of my resume. To make it worse, my cover letter mentioned stuff like, "You can see by the attached, I have great interpersonal skills. What I've done for others, I can do for you only more so because this recent experience. I look forward to demonstrating this to you in person if you just give me the opportunity. Name, address, and telephone number on every single one. References by request." Story 36. Here's a fun creeper girl story. I hadn't started dating this guy yet and had only talked to him a few times. He lived in my dorm hall and he was friends with some of my friends. However, I found him rather attractive, so I attempted to look him up on Facebook and find out information on him and look at pictures. Since his Facebook appeared to be a lot more private, I ended up clicking on a link of the girl who I knew to be his ex-girlfriend, whose profile wasn't private at all. I spent a good 20 to 30 minutes browsing through her pictures before realizing I had class and ran off. Coming back from class, I ran into the guy and ended up talking to him for a few minutes. We had talked about some computer games and he offered to show me them on my computer. I was excited since this was the first time we'd hang out alone and he was coming over to my dorm room. We enter, I point to my computer, and in my horror, I realize his ex's photos are still popping up on my computer. He just looks at it for a second and goes, "Were you stalking my ex?" I felt like the creepiest person in the world for a while. Thankfully, we ended up dating and still are. Good story to tell the grandkids someday, eh? Story 37. I was at my school's library recently browsing Reddit. The recent IAMA kitty Fiddler was on the front page. I thought, this could be intriguing. But I'm in a public space and what if someone I know sees? Well, that probably won't happen. So I opened the thread. 2 minutes later, a friend of mine who's a straight-laced, teetotaling Mormon, but other than that, a really cool guy, taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, what you up to?" In my attempt to smoothly close that tab, I, of course, accidentally maximize it, then try quickly to close it, but misclick again. By this time, I'm sure he's seen that the page I'm reading is entitled, "I am a kitty fiddler." At this point, I finally managed to close the whole browser, smooth cover-up, and I awkwardly respond to his question. Story 38. Now, me personally, in our uni halls in freshman year, there was a group of around 20 of us who regularly hung out together, pre-lashed together, and went out together. One night we have pre-drinks in one of our mates' rooms, and as he goes to take a call of nature, decided to mess around on his Facebook. As I recall, we were going through his documents to find an alternate picture to put up for his profile. Unfortunately, we came across a folder named after one of our friends who was also present at the gathering. Turned out he had saved over 150 pictures of her from her Facebook and cropped them to show mainly her melons. Everyone saw, and the girl was pretty horrified. Good times. Story 39. My first time on E, and I was at a club with some old friends. I saw this girl from afar on the dance floor. I had to do it. I pushed my way through a crowded room and was practically cheek to cheek with her. "I just had to tell you that I think you're beautiful." "Thanks, but I have a boyfriend." "Oh, it's not like that at all. I'm not trying to pick you. I don't want you to go home. I wouldn't mind if you did. I just thought that someone had to tell you tonight. Can you please just leave me alone?" Scared, desperate face on her. I realize what I've done. I attempt a quick retreat into the shadows when a friend of hers slowly turns around and shouts, "Hey, poor Kevin Arnold. I haven't seen you since graduation. Meet my friend." Terrified girl. I panic. I ran out of the bar. I walked like 45 minutes home in the rain, breathing cool air through my nostrils. Never felt so good. Story 40. Doubt this is going to get any ground, so I won't even bother making a throwaway to post this one. This was back in 9th grade. At one of my classes, there was this girl I liked a lot. One day, I felt that I lost control of my hormones and decided that I must do something about it. Since I was sitting at the back corner of the class, I decided that if I leaned back a bit so that I sort of sunk in my chair, and that if I covered my front with my jacket from under the chest area to above my knees, I would be able to low-key fiddle away without a problem. I eventually ended up doing it, but let's just say that it was not very low key since some of my classmates and my teacher would constantly look at me and quickly look away when I stared in their direction. Story 41. Church. I just discovered that my Johnson prefers warm to cold and decided that trying to dip my thing in a sink full of warm water in the bathroom would probably feel a whole lot better than listening to this pastor witch at me for crap I didn't do. Went to attempt said feat. No sooner had I dunked my donut than someone came in the men's bathroom door, which was behind me. I can only imagine what story this guy concocted in his head about what was going on. I remember looking into the mirror and locking eyes with him for a split second, then he immediately turned and walked out. I proceeded to remove the aforementioned member from said warm sink full of water, fixed my clothes, and told my mom I wrenched in the bathroom so we could get the heck out of there. Let's just say I had excuses for why I couldn't go to church for a couple of weeks. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you at YouTube. Thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.